Hello everybody, welcome back to Crafty Elf. In today's episode, I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know to start Blender. So yeah, let's go. Okay, first I'm gonna show you how to move around and use the interface. So hold the middle mouse button and drag the mouse to move it around like this. This will rotate the view around whatever point you happen to be looking at. If you go over here to this button, you can hold down on it and move the view to change what you're going to be rotating around. To zoom, you can either do this and do the same thing, hold and move it, or you can scroll up and down. So up will zoom in, out, down will zoom out. Or if you want, you can use this. So you just click and it'll rotate like this. So yeah, that's how to move around the viewport. So when you boot up Blender, you'll automatically see this screen. You'll have scene collection over here, which will have this collection, which is just like a folder for all of your different items. You can do that if you want to get rid of, don't want these to be shown. You got a cube, which is like an object. Got a light and a camera. And if you delete these for any reason, you can always just click Shift A and it'll pop this up, or you can click Add here and it'll do the same thing. You can add Mesh, which is just object, curves, surfaces, metaballs, text, etc. or light or camera. For a camera, if you add a camera, you can click this button and it'll show you the camera view. So you can adjust the camera to show what you want in your scene. And also you could click numpad 0, which is just like the 0 in the number pad on like the right side. You know, you've got the 5 in the middle and the 8, 4, 6, 2 are the arrows. 0 at the bottom is camera thing. And what I just did there was I aligned the camera to my position. So if you find a camera angle that you really like, say you want this to be it, you just press Control, Alt, and the numpad 0 again, and it'll align it up like so. Alright, now that we've gone through that, we can go over to this sidebar, which is where you've got properties of items and such. So this is the workspace settings. That's just workspace stuff. Here are the render properties, which you can use your render engine, Eevee, Workbench, or Cycles. By default, it probably should be Cycles, but you can use these other ones for various projects. Change how many samples you've got. Turn on these various things to change the performance or noise or lighting of the render. Here we've got the output properties, which will show like the resolution, how many frames you're going to have, where you want to send it to. Are you going to send it in a PNG format? Are you going to send it in a video? This is if you want to export a full video. FFmpeg video would work the best. You can go here to change where it's going to send the files to. Yeah, and then here is the layer properties, which are more lighting and things for layers. Scene properties, which is just properties for like the scene and the camera. World properties, nodes and other stuff with like viewports, and yeah, it's not much. And then collection properties, if you want to do things with collections. And then here's one that you'll probably be using the most, object properties. This is like if you select an object, you can see its location, you can change its rotation here, change its scale, you can do a bunch of other things with it. Physics properties. These are if you want to add like realistic movements that you don't have to animate. But that's complicated, so I might have to save that for a later video. Then we've got constraint properties, which is if you want to change somehow like the object, like some limitation added. Object data properties, this is, I selected the camera last, so this is camera properties, so you can change the depths of field for the camera, you can do a bunch of other things. And then we've got texture properties, which is if you want to like paint it. But if you select an object, then there's another one, which is these two. Object data properties, which is like the camera data properties, where you can add UV maps and such. And then you've got the material properties, which you can change its appearance. So you could make it more metallic by turning up this slider. Or you could change its color if you wanted to. So yeah, let's go over using materials. So by default there should be a standard material. You can click this button to add a material and this button to remove it. So let's add a material here and then add a new material. Now you can see, you can edit this a bunch. I probably just made a duplicate of a material, but whatever. Now you can change the color, and it should be either RGB. You can use RGB, HSV, hex, if you know a hex code of a particular color you want, or you can just do like eyedropper stuff. So let's say I want this to be a really bright red. You can do that. And if I were to go to an RGB, it'd probably be red very high. So in fact, let's make it be 1. And if you wanted to change, this is its default value, like how bright it is. So over here it's very bright, here it's not. But you might notice something, that this cube is not red. And that's because in here we have the shading viewport, the viewport setting. So viewport setting here is the wireframe, which just shows you the outline of it. You've got solid, which just shows you there's no color, there's no materials, it's not rendered, but it just shows you where the objects are. And then here we have the material preview. So if we set it to there, then it should be red. But it isn't, because this material is on top of it. So if we delete that material, now it's red. So yeah, and then over here we have rendered, which will show you what your scene will look like in the final render. Okay, now that we've done that, we can go, I think I'm going to briefly talk about collections. If you want to, you can right click on a collection, and there's a bunch of things you can do with visibility and layers and things, copying and pasting the collections. But you can click this, instance to scene, and now you have a collection that's just a collection, but you can move it around as if it were one big joined object. So let's talk about that. How do we move things around in here? Well, you could go to the object properties and change the location like that, or you could just go over here and select the move, which will prop up this thing where you can move it like so across each of the axes. Or, and then there's a rotational thing, you can rotate it, you can scale it in each of the axes. Or you've got this free transform tool, which is just all of them. So you can move it, right, because I'm moving a collection. You can rotate it, you can scale it, and as you can see, I'm moving the light and scaling the light along with this cube as when I'm selected this instanced collection. Okay, now let's check out these things at the top. You've got the layout, which just shows you all of the objects in their places, where you can see the layout of the scene you're setting up. There's a modeling, which you can, I guess, model stuff. If you wanted to get into modeling somehow, there's probably tools in there. Sculpting, there are different sculpt tools. Imagine you can you could bulge out parts of it. UV editing, if you want to add a UV map and plot textures or whatever to a specific point. Texture paint, if you want to draw on there. Shading, which a bunch of stuff, and you can change how it looks and also add nodes. Nodes are in the shading tab, and they allow you to change properties of the item, of the object. Like you can give it emissions if you want and have it glow. You've got the animations tab where you see this timeline here. You can add keyframes, you can insert keyframes or turn on auto keying, and when you do that and you select a place on the timeline and move it, it'll just automatically create a keyframe, which is very helpful. Got the rendering tab, which would show you the render result if you had it. Compositing tab, I'm not exactly sure what that is. I think render stuff, and maybe it shows you everything, like the completed render and animation. Geometry nodes, which are nodes that not necessarily change metallics, I imagine they would change kind of like sculpting. And then scripting, where you can make a script and do some amount of quick editing. You can just scroll and see which one ever fits your whichever tab you need for whichever workspace you need for whatever you're doing. Okay, here we've got the file, edit, render, window, and help tabs. Help just could take you to tutorials or the manual. File would be opening or saving your projects. Edit, you can look for preferences here, which will preferences for add-ons. You can change the interface and change the settings essentially. Render, there's two main things. You can render the image, which will take a fully rendered picture from the camera's perspective, or rendering the animation, which if you have an animation, it'll just play it all together and export that. Window, which is if you want to add open another window or something. And I'm just going to show you one more handy little tip. You can, if you saved your file, which you can do with saving or save as, you can append it to another file. So say you've created a model of a character and you want to insert that into a world into a file of a world for them. You can go to append and then find where you keep your files, and you can select a file, let's say this low poly lamp I made a while back. Click append, go to collection, click the collection, or if you've created a collection in that name, click append, and then that will insert the lamp as a collection. And if you want, you could just have it be selected, or you could instance it as I showed you there. So there we go. That's pretty much everything you would need to know to get started with Blender. There are a lot of advanced features, like I barely got into modeling or physics, but if you'd like to see more tutorials about that, maybe I could put together them together in the future. But yeah, this has been Crafty Elf. I'll see you next time. Bye!